Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are here for our second episode of The Talking Stick. And once again, my name is Jess, and I'm here just to chat it up, basically. Today, we are going to talk about something that actually has been sort of a theme for me suicide. Suicide and suicide awareness. I'd like to bring more awareness to what seems to be quite an epidemic globally, actually. Um, please also comment below if you prefer this evening time, if it enables anyone to actually, join us. I'm also considering maybe doing like a Zoom link where we can all see each other's faces and just sort of talk, and then posting that for anyone who may be interested in the future. But all of that aside, so suicide, um, its own experience outside of even just the loss through accident or um, illness. It's something that is, to me, it's just a really difficult thing to truly understand, empathize with. To some degree I can. Things get hard. Sometimes there's seemingly no way out for people. So here we are. We're going to talk about this. Statistically, suicide's a pretty big deal. Let me give you some of those statistics right now. Suicide is the 12th leading cause of death in the U.S. It actually supersedes homicide. Um, in the year 2020, 45,979 people actually were successful in committing suicide. Also in 2020, there was an additional 1.2 million attempts. So this is kind of huge to me. We'll be talking later about a good friend of mine who we lost to suicide. It's his birthday today. He would be 54. And, so we're going to go into that a little bit and sort of my personal experience. But, it actually averages out to 13 and a half people per 100,000 that commit suicide. And, the highest rate is middle-aged white men, which I think is kind of strange when you bring it into a perspective of, these are supposed to be some of the most privileged in the world. Yet they're the most likely to commit suicide. So does privilege equate pressure, or, what is that about? That's something I'd really, if you have any ideas about that or what that might be about, please comment below. 3.8%, or excuse me, 3.8 times more likely is it to be a man than a woman as well. And that actually comes to about 130 per day. That's just, I don't know, this kind of blows my mind. And so I think it's up to us as a community to some degree. The medical community, they do their best, but hey, Mare, what's up? Maris is here. So I'm just trying to figure out exactly, how can we approach this as a community? Because for me, after reading all of this and doing this research, and I do have some of this information below, as well as some links for you to do your own research. But when I started looking at who sits around and actually researches suicide and what it might look like in a human that's considering it. Most people who are actually going to do it don't talk about it. The people, that's what they say, or that, the people that talk about it, it's a cry for help, or, and I don't like either one of those statements, to be honest. But yeah, so I have some of this actually, itemized, and, it is again below, but let's talk about it. So what do people, it says, warning signs include talking about wanting to die or kill themselves, okay? Talking about feeling empty or hopeless or having no reason to live, feeling trapped or feeling that there are no solutions. Now, This is a big one. Feeling an unbearable amount of emotional or physical pain. Again, another big one. Somebody might not be talking about their pain, but they're experiencing it. Uh, Withdrawing, giving away possessions, saying goodbye to family and friends, putting affairs in order, taking risks, um, displaying extreme mood swings, suddenly very sad to very calm or happy, uh, making plans to kill themselves, talking about feeling great guilt or shame. Another one that I can identify with is later on I will talk about acting anxious and agitated, using alcohol and drugs, a change in eating and sleep patterns, rage. Some of these things to me, I wouldn't even think about. I guess we all go through things, and it's just hard to tell when someone is actually getting to that point. So, it's I think it's really important that we all sort of do the research and have in our minds present what this looks like. Because to me, now reading this, my friend Neal had many of these. He had many of these symptoms going on, and many people around him. He wasn't isolated really in a sense of physical, but I think in emotional he was. And there's also the idea that people do this on a sudden, after sudden loss, or in some way, just feeling hopeless over a certain situation, like a breakup or a loss of a job, or homelessness. I think COVID probably encouraged the thought process for a lot of people. So, we're all under a level of stress, and we have to be here for each other. We have to try to understand. And for me, some of the solutions and the things it says to say to people, I just don't, I don't know if that would even be helpful, even mentioning to someone, hey, it feels like you're getting pretty low and you're pretty dark. Are you thinking of killing yourself? Thinking about saying that to someone, and wondering if they would even be honest. Is it that something so direct? It feels so subtle to me. It feels like something more subtle. So I'm really interested in anyone who's had an experience around this, subject matter, to share below, some of the things you may have seen in that person prior that may not be listed here, or some of the things that were, But for me, I've actually, saved a few lives from suicide. And I think I have a level of PTSD at this point. I've probably encountered it probably 4 or 5 times in my life, and only once has the person actually been successful. So yeah, that's a whole nother topic too that I want to also bring up is the people, around the person that commits suicide, and the way the grief is different. You know, it's so much more complex, and the guilt and the shame within the self for not knowing or noticing that this person was at that point. Is it compounds the grief, I think, even more. So tomorrow we actually will be talking more about grief and the layers of grief, and the different types, because there's not just one thing, and it's not always over death, right? It's over the loss of anything. So pinned tomorrow, grief. But right now I do really want to just talk a little bit more about, the people around the person that is feeling that way. And then once they do that, what happens? It says, statistically, 85% of people in the US will know someone personally who actually successfully takes their own life. And for each of those people that successfully do that, there are 6 people around them that are directly affected at minimum. Um, and so, this is something that, to think about how, to me, when it happened, it sort of felt like the pain that that person was in suddenly got splintered out to everyone around to hold until they joined them on the other side, in their hearts and, in their minds. I don't know if that ever really can go away. I don't think grief for a loved one ever really goes away. You just sort of cope with it. But when that person took their own life and you were a person directly around them, man, it's heavy, super heavy. It's a complex, grief. And, those people are often at risk of depression and post-traumatic stress. And also then, thinking the same thing and also considering suicide, so it becomes like a domino effect. So, again, anyone out there who is struggling, don't hesitate to reach out. It's amazing sometimes how one day can change everything. And one moment, one conversation, one thought can actually flip the switch, and perspective is changed. And, one more day, let's take one more day at a time. Everyone has a purpose. Everyone's here for something, for some reason. And, you're loved, you're wanted here. And so to me, it's really important to communicate and talk to people. And of course, sometimes that doesn't happen. So, you know, um, it really is, it becomes difficult. And I know I've spoken to a few people in pertinence to my personal experience with my friend Neal, that, he promised, like they had other family members, or multiple even, had commit suicide. And when they felt that energy from him, they begged him, please don't do this, please don't do that to yourself, promise me. And then that, when that happens, then you have a whole nother level of betrayal, and the feeling of anger at, like, that person for lying, or not considering, your request of them as a human. But, we all have to have the compassion that the pain is real. So, yeah, I've included some links below as far as resources, but the one that I find to be the most important would be the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. So you can either call or text, dial or text 988, and you can chat at the 988lifeline.org. Those are below. Please use those if anyone here, has those thoughts, or knows anyone who has those thoughts, or is worried. Even, I think you could even contact them and ask how to help you, help them. So, I really encourage everyone to, pay attention, love hard, and don't be afraid to ask the hard questions and talk to the people that you love, um, because it just happens like this, you know. So, with that being said, let's talk about Neal. So, I don't know how many people here are actually, you know who he is, but, a good friend of mine, Neal Casal. Today is his birthday, so happy birthday to Neal in the stars. Um, he was an amazing musician. He worked with many, prolific bands throughout his life, and as well as other, just working with musicians on their albums and things like that. He himself had 12 solo albums, and this was his band, Circles Around the Sun. And he was in the Chris Robinson Brotherhood. He was with Ryan Adams and the Cardinals, um, the Hardworking Americans. He played with Phil Lesh and Friends. He really had a really amazing career. His solo work is really beautiful. He was a really amazing human, really golden hearted, really golden hearted. And the lifestyle around music and everything is often one that can be dark, and there's a little underbelly there, lots of different addictions and things. And everybody has skeletons, and so, but when you're a good person, those skeletons, they knock loud. And I was one of the people very close to him, and I was aware of his struggle and the things that were going on. And I tried to love hard. I tried to just apply love and listen and convince him, to make moves and release fear. He was having all of these a lot of these symptoms here. The hopelessness, body pain, unable to sleep, anxiety, PTSD type symptoms. Um, and he continually mentioned that he just didn't feel there was a way out of the situation he had, that had become him. Um, And I mean, he even one time, mentioned suicide to me. And I don't really talk about this that much, but, in the spring before he passed, he said something to me that haunts me now. That he, I don't know, we were having a little bit of a slight, I wouldn't call it an argument. We never really argued, but I was expressing concern and the choices that were being made and people that, you know, were in his life and close to him at the time and the danger that he was in due to it. And, he just sort of broke down and was just like, Jess, I know I'm not being a good friend. I'm not being a good son. You know, I'm just finally pulling out of this suicidal fog that I didn't think was humanly possible. And I remember that moment of shock, just the fact that he even said anything like that. Um, and I just retracted any type of, argumentative or, energy of that manner and just started saying, I love you, thank you for sharing that with me. I love you. I love you. And people love you. We love you, and, a lot of people did and still do and always will. But things just continued to roll down the hill from that point. That was about 4 months before he actually did it. And in the month that he did do it, there was a noticeable lift. There was a noticeable change of where he just sort of seemed a little happier. And when you say, how you doing? It wasn't the dark responses. It was, I'm doing all right. And the last show he played, he did something very strange and texted me his solo. And he was so humble. That was just, I don't know, looking back, I guess I should have thought that should have triggered me. And I was actually like feeling like, oh, he's being positive. Wow, he's actually, you know, sending me his work saying like it was great. So, and that was like just a few days, before he actually left the earth. And, so I think the signs were actually there. If we had just been able to know or see those things, um, I don't know, maybe we could have saved him. You never know. And what we could have done, there's a million things that we can think about for the rest of our lives, really. But you know, my hope here is to really bring to the table everyone just sort of being armed, like the way you carry pepper spray, carry pepper spray for this situation and, inform yourselves because we never know in the world that we live in and how volatile it actually is and how everything is just so shifty and kind of strange over the last few years. We really got to take care of each other. But please check out Neal's music. I've put, again, down below some links. There's also Music Cares, which is, a resource for musicians who are also struggling. They go into these cycles where there is no home space. It's the bus, it's the stage, and the energy depletion of performance, and then the consistent energy backstage, with drugs, alcohol, groupies, whatever. I mean, not every band. I've been with some very, very pure and beautiful environments with some bands. But, you know, you're not alone out there, music men, music ladies. Please don't hesitate to reach out. And the Neal Casal Music Foundation, actually, I've also put that below. Please check out the page. It talks all about him as well as all of his work, access to the music, and there's some a project that a Highway Butterfly, which is I think it's 4 albums. It's a really beautiful compilation of music that has been, his music that has been actually covered by some of his closest friends and musical partnerships. So it's definitely worth checking out. Once again, one of my favorite singer-songwriters that I've ever heard. Beautiful voice, so talented, and such a golden heart of a human being. And even out in the ether somewhere, I believe he can feel our love. So it's his birthday. So show him a little birthday love and go listen to a few tunes. Um, and, take care of yourself. and the people around you. And, the one thing I've got to say is, and if anybody out there is struggling as they've lost someone, or even in the future, if that happens, oh, I hope it doesn't. But if it does, do your best not to blame yourself. It's something I still struggle. I do. I'll admit. I struggle with that. And I don't think he'd want us to feel that way. I think, it was in some way an act of love in his eyes. I think he thought he was protecting the people he loved because of the situation he was in. And I know he wouldn't want any of us to feel, at fault or guilty. But, I know I do sometimes, and I still struggle. So that's a kind of short one here. We only got a 20-minute in, but I would love to hear what anyone has to say about this topic. I would also welcome anyone to contact me via email, thetalkingstickcollective@gmail.com. I try to check it a couple times a day just in case, someone's in there that really just needs to talk. And I will do my best to be there. We can text, we can call, we can FaceTime. I don't have to know you, but, just know that if nobody else is there, if you can trust this little face, I can be there, and I'm willing to be. So, I appreciate those of you that are here. Let's see who's here. Let's check it real quick. Mare, still here. Thank you for those of you who joined. It looks like there's someone else here possibly. But yeah, anyone who's here right now, I really appreciate you being here, and, being here to, like I said, show, grow, and glow. Because as human beings, what else do we have but each other, and, our own hearts, and the unity that we can create here to learn and live and love, right? So tomorrow, I think the evening is a little bit nice. I kind of like it. So I think we'll do tomorrow again at 7:42, and it will be about grief and the layers of grief. And I hope that anyone who is struggling with that, or, is just interested in helping the people around them who may be struggling, please join us. And once again, I appreciate you, and I guess I'll see you tomorrow then. All right. Have a great night, you guys. Happy birthday, Nealio. We love you. Okay. Bye-bye.